Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Patty Framo here. Today is Monday, December the 3rd, 2018. It's 4 p.m. New York time. That's 1 p.m. Los Angeles time. And it's 9 p.m. London time. And if you're in Sydney, Australia, it's 8 a.m. Good morning, Sydney, Australia. Welcome to your daily dose of happy. And our week is off to a fabulous start. We're going to be doing another Q&A today. It was really successful all the other times we've been doing, including last week. And it's been fun, Patty, because when we do the Q&As, that's when we get all this audience participation from the Law of Attraction Changed My Life group on Facebook. And we were getting a lot last week. I hope we get the same amount this week, you know?
Yeah, I hope so too. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was terrific. It was really, really good. So I'm going to give people a moment here to tune in. Well, Jamie already liked us, so Jamie has just tuned in. That's a good thing
Yay,
because she's
thanks,
the
Jamie.
admin. Yeah.
Hi, Jamie.
But hello. I'm sure other
I'm
people are
dying
saying
to
hello
meet
here.
all these people. There's something about having these Facebook people that you're friends with and not having met them in person, just like us having not met in person. I just would
That's
love it if
true.
we could all get together sometime and have a big
Wouldn't that
LOA
be
party.
fun? Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
cool. I'd like that. I don't know where we do it because we're all over the world, but nevertheless, we pick someplace, I guess. Have a
Come to
big
San
bash.
Diego. Always got sunny days here.
This is true. Yes, that's what San Diego is like. That is very true. It's a beautiful place. So let's see. Okay, people are starting to tune in. I want to make sure I got everything set up here properly so that I can actually see the comments. Um, yeah, here we go. Oh, and Jamie's waving hello. Hello, Jamie. There we go.
Hi.
Very good. And oh, I got another question from Nasha. She wants to know when we're going live. So I'll let her know we're live now. And I'll even give her a link to it. Whoops, I got the wrong link. Not what I intended to do. We'll try this one. Yeah, there she goes. Okay, now she can get into. So,
Cool.
how you been? I mean, we haven't talked in a week, but I mean, listeners have some small idea of what my week has been like. I haven't clued them in on everything, but I've been through an upsy downsy kind of week, riding the roller coaster. I hope yours has been a little bit smoother than mine has been.
Oh no.
No?
Up and down. Heaven and hell. It's been a tough week. I kind of feel like I wonder if when we get into law of attraction and we get really good at raising our vibration, that when we fall, we get used to that feeling a lot. We get
Hmm.
comfortable with that higher vibration feeling. And
Oh
when we
yeah,
fall off that high flying disc, it is like, ow, it's
mm,
painful. It's
it
like
is.
down, you're like way down there. And I feel like it happens more in a way after you get uh, sort of more used to having it high because there's such a contrast between where we are up here and when you fall off that disc, you're just like crashing.
It's an interesting question. I mean, I think part of it is we are all still learning how to stay there. You know,
Hmm.
some of us are better off than others. I mean, for instance, my Monday morning co-host Louis is on there like 95% of the time, so he does a really good job of staying up there. And he's even told me that on those occasions where he slips off, he doesn't fall down very far anymore, which is ideal. You know, that's like the best place to be.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
while we're still learning it, you know, because we're all learning this stuff, we're all getting better at it. In
True.
fact, Louis gave me a really nice compliment after the podcast today, telling me how much progress he saw in me in like the last 2 months since he and I have been doing a podcast together. So thank you again for that,
Nice.
Louis. But yeah, I mean, when you're learning, you know, it's not like all of us have gotten to the point now where we can maintain 100% focus on the things we want and 0% focus on the things we don't want.
Hmm.
We're still practicing. And I
Hmm.
mean, I've been having a number. You talked about getting to know people in person. I'd love to be able to do that, but even getting to know people on Facebook, I've been getting more and more, you know, private messages and interactions and posts and so forth. And it's the same theme over and over again. It's always the same theme. It's I fell off. I'm in a lousy place. How do I climb out of this place? From
Yeah.
somebody who's been practicing it for 10 years or, you know, something like that. It's always the
Hmm.
same thing. It's so easy for us to fall off. I actually came up with an idea over the weekend that I very quickly implemented late Sunday. It was
Hmm.
from a conversation I had with one of our listeners. In the conversation, she was telling me about stuff that was going on in her life, which was pretty difficult stuff. And asking for advice on, how to. She had manifested part of this big dream, and all she needed was the other half of it to manifest and get the rest of her dream. And so I was saying, well, just keep doing what you've been doing because it's working. You just got to stick with it some more. And she liked
Exactly.
that, but she was also expressing what so many people express, that it's hard because she doesn't have a good support group or anything like that. It just got me thinking. It reminded me of what they do when they teach kids to swim. They have that buddy system, right? So
Yeah.
you always have your buddy, and you're checking on your buddy to make sure he's okay. Maybe you're also helping him with strokes, or he's helping you with strokes, that kind of thing. But it's mainly a life-saving thing, but it's also a teaming thing. And it occurred to me,
Hmm.
well, why don't we have a buddy system for LOA? I mean, we should,
Yeah.
because so many times we just need that little extra bit of support. And what better way to do it than through online? Because then, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can still provide support for
It's
somebody else.
true. It's true.
So I created a Facebook page and a Facebook group, both of which are called Pivot Pals, based on the idea of
Ah,
pivoting.
that's
And
so cool.
yeah, yeah, and we've got people who've signed up for the group and for the and like the page and so forth. And not a whole lot of activity has gotten going yet. We're still trying to figure out what exactly we're going to do, but I figured get the impetus going,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
see what comes out of it.
That and I think also, that's a lot of where if people are feeling like they need that little extra, but that's kind of what coaching is about, is having
This
that
is true.
person helping you through that stuff that sort of gets all jumbled in your head. And I know for me, I mean, I'm a verbal processor. So for
Mm.
me to process internally, everything just spins in circles. And
Yeah.
it's very helpful for me to be able to talk it out loud with somebody. Even just hearing yourself say the words is is amazing how powerful that can be, because you hear the words back to yourself and you're like, wow, I didn't even realize I felt that way. So I find
Exactly.
that coaching, I think, is sort of taking that, what you're describing, but to that next level when you really need
Mm.
extra support. So yeah,
I
but
think you're
that's so
right.
cool. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
idea.
And actually, it's also kind of what we're doing today with a Q&A. We've had quite a few law of attraction Q&As lately, and they've been quite successful. People have been taking advantage, and we want to encourage people who are listening in today, if you have anything you're dealing with, some issue, you're trying to attract something, you have a question about how stuff works, any of this stuff, post something, because that's really what we're doing here today. We don't have a specific topic. It's just let's see what we can do to help people out, because we've got
Exactly.
a life coach extraordinaire who's really, really good at this stuff. I've gotten fairly good at stuff too. So between the two of us,
You
we ought to be able to
are.
figure to almost anything.
Exactly. And it's funny because I find too that, for people who have been practicing it a long time, it still is helpful to get that support. But in the beginning, especially when you first start listening to Abraham Hicks audios and you're like, what the heck does this mean? What's a vortex? What
Yeah,
is
right.
vibration? What are all these? There's so many layers to it. It seems like it's this simple concept, which it kind of is, but
Mm.
there's layers and layers and layers and all these different tools
Oh,
and
they really
strategies
are.
and approaches that can
Yeah.
help. Because just last week, when I had my meetup on Saturday, I had some feedback from one of the members saying that some of the people who were more advanced were feeling frustrated that the beginners were having such beginner questions and
Oh.
having to hear that explanation of what that
Mm.
is. But I feel like that's so critical. So I'm kind of modifying things to be more geared towards people who are novices, because that beginner part, you're just desperate for that help and information. I was anyway, in the
I've
very
also
beginning.
found, I mean, even after the beginning, I found that it really does pay to go back to basics, as you've
Hmm.
already have learned quite a bit of it. For instance, the Abraham Hicks book, Law of Attraction: The Basics of the Teachings of Abraham. I didn't read that until this year. Now,
Yeah.
I've been working on practicing law of attraction since 2007, but I never read that particular book until this year. And then Wendy Dillard and I went through it page by page and basically hashed it and tore it apart and explained it piece by piece and so forth. And I got so much out of it.
Yeah, I
It almost
bet.
made me wish I had read it, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But but
Well,
the the
you
point
read it
is,
when you're ready, right?
well, you do, yeah, it's true. But the point is that even if it's something that you think you already know, and a lot of it I thought I did already know, you pick up nuances. And that's what I've noticed about Abraham Hicks. I've noticed it particularly with Neville Goddard. Many of the people from the past who, played a significant role in helping us understand how all this stuff works. People from like Napoleon Hill to Florence Scovel Shinn to more modern day Tony Robbins. I mean, you can look pretty much across the board, and they're all contributing to it. And every single one of them has nuance, deep down nuance that you have to kind of think about what it is they're saying or writing in order to really grasp, like, wait a minute, do I have the whole picture yet? I thought I had the whole picture, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm leaving something out. And you know what? That's true. I am. I'm leaving that piece out right there. And that's what you
Hmm.
find as you're going along.
Yeah. That and also just reminding yourself, because I feel like a lot of times there's things I know, but you just forget. It's like
Mhm.
crazy how you just forget certain
You do.
basic concepts.
Yeah.
Um, I find that sometimes I'll fall off that high flying disc and I'll be in that bad place like I was. I had a bad day yesterday, one of those bad
Oh,
days. And of course, the vibration that you're putting out, that you're resonating at, you're going to attract more and more and more of that. So my day
oh
just
yeah.
went
Just
down the
downward
tubes.
spiral. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I can just remind myself that the reason I'm feeling that emotion, that negative emotion, is because I'm not keeping up with something that I already put out there in my vortex. That's all it
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. There's something out there that I want, and I'm not keeping up with it, and
Hmm.
I'm resisting it in some way. And when you say it that way, it just does, it sounds like such a simple thing,
It is a
you
simple
know?
thing.
I know, I know. But then how do you get, when you're feeling in that bad place, then, what are the different exercises and processes and strategies can we use to move up to that place
Hmm.
where we can actually hear that? Because sometimes, when you're in that bad place, you can't even hear stuff.
It's
It's
true. It's
amazing. And
true.
and I think that that's part of why going back to rereading things or hearing them again, you hear it in a completely different way because at that time you only knew this much and now you know this much and you're able to absorb so much more of that information and
That's
use
true.
it.
Yeah, that's true. And you asked, what do you do when you're in the middle of that downward spiral? I don't have the complete answer yet, but I do have part of the answer. This much I know does work. As soon as I notice to any slight degree that I'm in that downward spiral, no matter what it is I'm thinking about, no matter what it is I'm talking about, I'll just go, stop! Just stop! And just to break the pattern, just to break the concentration.
Exactly.
Stop! If it means
Everybody
that
has
you're
their
just
little
supposed to take a break,
tricks.
yeah, just stop. Just stop right
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. A friend of mine last night who I went out with because I was just in such a bad place. He's like, "It's all right. We'll go out and I'll, make you feel a little bit happier." And he did. I got to vent for a while. But what he does is he looks at this big off and on switch when he's in the middle of wakes up in the middle of the night and those things are just zooming and zooming and zooming around in your head, and he flips that off switch. And for some reason that works. Well, I kept trying, it wasn't working. But everybody has their own little tools that work for them, you know? And it could be like you talk about your walking meditations,
now.
and
Yeah,
it could be taking a nap. There's a lot of different
sure.
ways that we can approach it, but yeah.
That's true. That's true. In fact, since we're also live streaming to the Law of Attraction Changed My Life group, anyone there who's listening who wants to share their own tricks that they use, their own little secret that they use when they find themselves in that negative spiral, what's the first thing that you do to break out of it? Share your trick. Let us know. Oh, okay. Well, Patricia just gave us hers. She said whoosh. She says whoosh. That's her way of stopping herself. So,
Ah,
hey, that works. That works. Whatever
uh-huh.
works is what matters. But
Exactly.
share your particular trick, and also want to invite you if you have anything that you're dealing with that you want our expert help with, we would love to give it. So just type your question into the chat area if you're listening to the live stream. If you're listening to the podcast after the fact, obviously that's not going to work quite so well. However, we don't want to leave you out. There is a way that you can do it. It's a little bit time delayed. Send us a message,
Yeah.
because we love getting the
And we
emails.
can talk about it the next week.
Absolutely, even the next day. I mean, just it
Yeah.
depends on how urgent it is. I mean, but
Responding
I've
right
I've,
away.
I've had
Exactly.
stuff come in and it came in an hour before a podcast. I said, well, we're talking about that one today. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
great way to get that kind of reaction. But
That and also if people have questions just about some of the meanings of some of the words, I know that that can be a real challenge
that's
for some
true.
people. What do certain things mean, and how do you
Well, the
what are
concepts
the
are a little
steps
strange,
about?
compared to what you're used to in like the traditional, typical modern day world. the wording means a little bit different kind of thing. Like we
Hmm.
use the word the universe, right? Which is used in a pretty different way out in the real world. The universe is just, the planets and the stars and all that kind of thing. We use it in much more of an energetic way and has a very, very different meaning to it. So yeah, it's like the old joke about understanding what's going on in the sports game that you're watching. It helps if you have a program so you know who the players are. And the same
Exactly.
thing is true with the verbiage of how deliberate creation works. So yeah, so
That's
anything.
true. It's true. And even the whole idea of like when you say universe, what I think of right away is source. So when I
Hmm.
say put it out to the universe, I'm also thinking in terms of source, inner being, higher Patty, whatever it is you want to call it. Some
Higher
people call it
Patty. Oh, I like
higher
that.
Patty.
That's good. Personalize
Because
it.
you
That's
have a
really good.
higher Walt and I have a
I
higher Patty.
do. I like that. That feels good. Or my inner
What
Walt.
makes
I
it
like that one too.
personal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And I think we see something here. Jamie has posted, oh gosh, yes, if I indulge a negative thought momentum, I can suck contrast into my experience so quickly. I have to soften my body and soften my mind. It seems to allow an ascension in state. An ascension, I like that word. An ascension in state.
What
But
does that
softening
mean?
her body and softening her mind. Hmm?
What does that mean in ascension?
Ascension
Oh,
to rise up.
ascending to ascend.
Ascension.
Okay.
Yeah,
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 that's cool. So
yeah.
softening her body as well as her mind.
And her mind, yeah. Which is a good idea because softening is another way of saying being kind to yourself.
Soothing.
That's been a that's been a theme for us this week, talking about how important it is to be kind to ourselves because we're so rough on ourselves.
It's true.
When it
It's
comes to
true.
criticizing, we criticize ourselves more than we criticize anybody else. And
Yep.
yeah, that needs to be calmed a bit.
Yep. It's really
Preferably
true.
eliminated, but calmed.
And sometimes if I sort of stand outside myself, if I'm feeling really, sort of down on myself, um, I remember years ago going to a therapist who said, now, what would you do if you were talking to your daughter instead of
Mm,
myself? And it completely shifted everything for me. Well, I would never talk to my
right?
daughter that way. I would never think of it that way. I just want to soothe her and make her feel better. And it's
Hmm.
that same thing, how sometimes people talk about your inner child or whatever, but I think a lot of it is just that inner being, that our self is this, vulnerable marshmallow that needs soothing. You know, sometimes we can have those crusty exteriors, but all of us have that little marshmallow
Which
stuck
is kind of
inside.
ironic when Abraham tells us that our inner being always sees us in the best possible life. So that marshmallow has a really strong ability to just stay focused on what it wants and not at all on what it don't want. So
Exactly.
how much of a marshmallow is it really? I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, well, I don't know. I think we all have that soft inner core, that sort of vulnerable inner core inside all of us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the more that we, if we get down on ourselves and push ourselves and use all that efforting and all that
Yeah,
kind of
well,
stuff, I don't
exactly.
feel like it doesn't work as well.
Well, it works in the wrong direction. That's the thing I've noticed. If I'm not being kind to myself, if I'm being kind of harsh on myself, it always produces the wrong result. I never get a
Yeah.
good result out of it, you know? So,
That and if we're efforting too hard, there's that analogy of the vacuum cleaner, when the
mm,
vacuum cleaner is not plugged in and you're going back and forth over the rug, you're
yeah,
getting nowhere. You're putting all this effort in, you're working really, really hard, and you think if I just do it harder, it's going to work better. And obviously it's not going to because it's not attached to the energy.
exactly
So you
right.
plug that vacuum cleaner in, it has all that energy coming up into it, and it can suck the things up, and you don't have to do too much effort, and it just does all the work for you. And the
Hmm.
same way that when we can plug into our inner being or connect with at a high vibration with the vortex or source or higher patty or whatever you want to call it, that gives us like such power behind everything we do. So we don't need to struggle and effort so much.
Absolutely
And I'm
true.
sure, I feel like when I am able to do that, things just kind of flow.
Hmm.
They just kind of happen easily. You're on the way to work and the Red Sea is parting, all of the traffic is parting for you, you're finding the
I
parking
love that.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always the clue that I'm in the zone. Like, oh, wow, I guess I must be in the zone. Look at that. It's just opening right up
Mm.
for me. Because sometimes I don't even notice I'm there. I'm not feeling bad. So I figure, well, it couldn't be too bad if I'm not feeling bad, but it actually turns out I'm feeling pretty good. Just wasn't even paying
Yeah.
attention to it more than anything else. We got a
Exactly.
few people commenting. I just want to share some of the comments. First of all, Jamie says she loves that you personalize your higher self. She thinks that's great.
Uh-huh. She has a higher Jamie.
She has a higher Jamie. She does. Nasha says, for every time different idea works for me, sometimes it's comedy, sometimes it's a nap, sometimes it's meditation. And that's a good point because it can be different for different people what works. And for even one person, different things can work at different times. Some things don't always work for you,
Yeah.
so you try something else, right?
And that's like that time when we talked and you developed that list of the things that raise your vibration because
Yeah.
when there's different things that help us at different times. And when you're in that low place, sometimes you can't even think or remember what it is that makes you feel good because you're not lined up with that. You're in this lower place. And it's like, well, I know there's things that make me feel good, but I can't even think of what they are right now because you can't find them. It's like you
The
can't get
funny
there
thing
from
is,
here from there.
most of the time that list, because you're the one who talked me into creating that list and posting it on the wall, which I've done. And the funny thing about that list is most of the time that does work really nicely. But there are times I have found where I look at the list and none of the items look appealing to me.
Yeah, you're
None
like, I
at
hate them
all.
all. I
I
hate
hate them.
everything. Yeah.
I don't have to do any of that. I'm just so pissed off. And what that does for me is it reminds me to ask myself, well, what is it I'm so pissed off about? Because that's what
Right.
I forgot to do. I forgot
And
to ask
and
myself
even
negative.
what am I so negative about? And then the reverse of that, where if you figure out what you're pissed off about or things that you don't want are happening, and you do that piece of paper with on the left-hand side, you put all those, do that exercise where you put all those things that you don't want that are making you feel bad, and then put the reverse of what you do want. And sometimes when you get into that list of what you do want and you throw the other list out, the what you do want, if you're not clear, can just be how you want to feel. I
Mm,
just want to feel happier. I just want to feel soothed. I want to feel good about myself. I want to feel positive and hopeful, whatever that is, and then focusing on whatever it is that can help you reach those feelings. But you're right. When you look at sometimes, when you're in a really bad place, like that was me yesterday. I was like, I hate everything. I hate everyone. I hate everything. And, even when you practice this stuff all the time, it's amazing how sometimes you just get into that
Well, we
yucky
have these
place.
habits that are just so ingrained. We've worked on them for so long. We've given so much lip service to them. We've given so much energy to all this negative junk by focusing on it over and over and over again. I mean, asking adults to go away at the drop of a hat is probably a little bit asking too much.
Well,
Sometimes
exactly.
they stick around for a while. And
And
it
it's,
takes time to get.
it does. It takes time. And also, with that emotional scale in the Asking It Is Given book, that page where she does or they do that scale from hopelessness to elation and all the
Right.
emotions in the middle, we can't just go from here to there. To make that big leap, and maybe the list of the things that are going to make you feel better are just too far of a leap.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe it's even having little baby incremental steps or thinking, yeah, gee, I'd love to feel peaceful and hopeful, but I'm like nowhere near that. So I just want to go from maybe feeling yucky to just being angry. Like maybe
Hmm.
that's going to be the next better feeling thought. Whatever it is that's going to be that little tiny incremental step to just get you going in that upward momentum. Because when you've got that downward spiral of momentum happening, sometimes you're like in this swirl of negativity and it feels so hopeless. Um, and part of that would be maybe taking a nap if you can,
Hmm.
just cut it off completely
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
stopping that momentum.
Hitting the reset
Yeah,
button can be
anything
very
that's gonna,
effective.
right, right. Anything
Yeah.
that's gonna just get you tiny bit going in that upward momentum can start that whole momentum process going up.
Hmm.
See, I
Yep.
should have told this to myself yesterday.
Well, I keep wondering, is there some way to like create a virtual me so I can just turn on the virtual Walt app and have the app play and talk to me, periodically
Well,
when I'm this happy?
maybe we could do, videos of ourselves when we're in a really high flying vibration and feeling good, or when we're soothing ourselves, and have that recorded on your phone. So you can just click it,
Worth
and
a
there is
shot.
Walt saying, higher Walt going, "You're wonderful, you're fabulous. Remember all the good things that have been happening to you." And
The
it's
only
funny because a
problem is
lot of people,
there's a part of me that there would be a very good chance that when I'm in that bad place and seeing the good Walt talking, there's a very good
you'd
chance that I
be
would say, "Oh, shut the bleep up."
exactly, shut up. Exactly, that's what I thought of too. Oh, just shut up. I don't want to hear about it. I just want to feel bad right now. And if sometimes we just got to let ourselves hang out there for a little bit.
Yep.
You just do the best you can. It's not like there's going to be this perfect answer. Yeah, it's funny.
But usually, though, there is something going on that you're not addressing. That's the one thing that I have noticed. Because Anne Marie and I were talking about this last night. We were talking about how, and I'm sure you know this and agree with this too, but every negative emotion we have is ultimately based in fear, one way or another. And when we dig down to the root of it and we find what the fear is, then at least we've identified what's really going on, what the real issue is. Problem is when you're in the negative place, it's not always the best time to dig down to find out what the real issue is because you just say, "Oh, shut the bleep up! I don't want to have to deal with this.
Exactly.
I just want to be
Exactly.
mad for a while."
Well, it's like Marianne Williamson's book, Return to Love, and she just talks about it's either fear or love. Like those are always our two options,
Yeah,
to
they
go
pretty
in the
much are.
direction of fear or go in the direction of love. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
fear,
pretty
though,
true.
can feel like so many different emotions. But the bottom line is what it is. It's just in that low vibration where we're letting that momentum get the better of us.
I'm looking in
Here
the
we.
comments. Jamie loves the idea of the personal alignment video. She thinks that's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should be
Mm-hmm.
pushing that one some more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What would
because
you?
we know what's going to feel good to us.
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Presumably, we
sort of
make the video when we're feeling good. It doesn't work too well if
well,
we're feeling
yeah, absolutely. Exactly. But we can sort of customize it to the things that we like to hear from ourselves.
I've often wondered if it might be useful to learn method acting, because that's pretty much the
Ah,
style of acting that everybody uses these days. And with method acting, you actually tap into,
the
a feeling that you
emotions.
experienced, from your own past, from your own experience, so that you can be that character. And I wonder if it wouldn't be worthwhile for most of us to just learn that, not to be an actor, but just so we can learn how to tap into our different emotional states whenever we need to.
Well, and
So
so, they do talk about, or Abraham talks about, how whatever it is we're thinking about and feeling and experiencing at the moment is what our reality is.
that's right.
And that's a great idea because you're right. If with method, if you're just acting and you're not doing method acting, you're just acting. It just looks
Yeah,
like you're
faking it.
pretending.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel real.
that's
And
why
there's really good,
the actors from the really good actors from the bygone days, from the golden age of Hollywood, were really, really good because they were method acting without even knowing what it was called.
right?
But most actors were along the lines of what you were talking about. Most of them were faking it. They were forcing it in some way. You could tell.
Hmm.
Today it's
Yeah.
a lot more seamless. You get a lot. It's a lot harder to spot somebody who's method acting than someone who is from the prior era, just
Well, you
because
can
of that.
feel it. Yeah, that's true. And if someone isn't acting isn't coming from true emotion, you can sense it. It doesn't feel sincere.
That's
It even
right.
feels fake,
Yeah.
fake in some
Yeah.
way. Yeah. I wonder how actors do that too, because gosh, think about what a challenge that would be to be going through these highs and lows, and especially if you're doing like a dark film, having to relive those, and if you do one take and another take and another take and another take, having to relive those dark places to get those emotions up.
Well, I've never
It would
been
be a
to acting
challenge.
school, but I've heard enough about some of it to realize that a lot of what they do is improv. Literally, they set a scene and they just start trying to be a character in that scene and live that character. And
Hmm.
their coach or their teacher will coach them. They'll stop them and say, "Okay, you're trying to do this now. What's in your own past?" I'm not the teacher, so I don't really know exactly what they do, but I'm guessing that they're doing something like this. They're saying, draw something from your own past. Can you think of something in your past where you've experienced something like that? Get into that feeling place. Okay, go again. That kind of thing. And
Yeah.
also, it's also the sort of a mental gymnastic that a lot of them learn to do. One of the more advanced ones, I remember seeing a scene from, it was an improv scene that was done at Juilliard when Robin Williams was there as a last year student. And the only problem that Robin had at Juilliard, from his own story, this is from a Robin Williams biopic, um, he had trouble being the whole actor because he's such a comedian. So even when he was doing something semi-serious, he had to throw in something that was funny. And
Uh-huh.
apparently they got him in trouble with, oh, what's the guy's name who ran Juilliard? Um, the guy who did the Smith Barney commercials. We make money the old-fashioned way. We earn it.
I know, I can't remember.
Whatever that guy's, Houseman, John
I know
Houseman.
what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, John Houseman. Houseman he'd get in trouble with Houseman because Houseman insisted that he actually do full method and not just do comedy. But there was one scene, and they have this on video, where Robin is just going off doing this character, and Houseman's in the background just cracking up, just loving it. So even John Houseman liked it when you broke character that way. But it's interesting to watch. I mean, this particular scene that they were doing, they were doing this thing where they would start doing a scene, and the two players would they'd be given a topic, like a theme, like sci-fi or something like that, and they on the spot invent a couple sci-fi characters, and they do a couple of lines, and then somebody would say switch, and that person who's saying switch thought of something that they wanted to come in and do, so they'd switch with one of the other actors, and they'd come in and do their line. And
Hmm.
you see a few of these come in, and then Robin would come in on a switch, and he would so completely throw the script out the
Oh,
window
he
and
was
replace it with something completely different.
so, I mean, talk about channeling source. He was
You could
so
just
creative.
see the other young actors; their minds were swimming like, "How do I keep up with this?"
I know. Yeah.
Oh,
And he was really an example of somebody that it seems like could be in such a high vibration and then go crashing down to
oh
that really
yeah.
low vibration, obviously. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but he put so much energy into not just doing his films and doing his stand-up, not just doing his appearances on TV, but also entertaining the crew of various sets that he was on, because he always wanted to make sure that the crew were feeling up.
Oh,
He threw so much energy into that he would have to take breaks and just go sit in a corner holding his wife's hand silently for like a half an hour just
wow.
to get his energy back,
To
because he threw so much
recharge.
of himself into it just to recharge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
really
amazing.
interesting.
Huh. Huh.
And yeah.
So the other thing I was just thinking about, this is completely off the subject, but it just occurred to me, is the topic of overwhelm. Have you been feeling overwhelmed lately? It seems like everybody I know is feeling overwhelmed with lists
I
they've
felt
got to
quite a bit
do.
um,
Hmm.
in the past month. I felt quite a bit of overwhelm because of this medical situation with my wife, and it's been severe enough that basically I've been running the house in addition
Wow.
to everything else that I do, in addition to taking care of her and everything. I mean, just it's like this huge load hit me, and
Right.
that's where my overwhelm was coming from, and it's it's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. And that on top of it, the worry, which
Yeah.
makes everything more difficult to deal with because it just zaps your energy.
Yep. And then, trying to get to do two podcasts a day, which actually was my saving grace, believe it or not, because
Wow.
I have so much fun doing these podcasts. That's how
Yeah.
I got my recharge.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, overwhelming, definitely. I mean, what's your clue that you've been hearing it all over the place? You've just
Well,
people coming to
I
you
mean,
or what?
I tend to get overwhelmed fairly easily because I'm one of those people that, my brain is always zipping in 1,000 different directions, and there's a lot of things that I want to get done. And then I'm one of those people that packs my schedule with appointments in between appointments in between appointments because
Yeah.
I love that social contact. So I keep
Hmm.
squeeze and I think, oh, I can do this, and I get excited about it, and I squeeze it all in there. And then I've got so many things that I'm completely overwhelmed, and so many things on
Hmm.
my list that I've got to do, and so many things that I want to do. And so, I'm one of those typical start all those projects, get excited about them, and then you're half done all these projects. And it
Hmm.
makes it really overwhelming I get to the point where, gosh, I got to go back and work on that again, but it's so overwhelming that you procrastinate.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
the overwhelm leads to procrastination, and you get into that cycle where you're just like, oh, forget it, I'm going to just go watch TV or take a walk. So that's what the meetup was on last week. A lot of the people at the meetup were
Ah,
talking about ways that they're overwhelmed in their life and how it is to deal with that.
yeah, because
So,
you run a meetup in the San Diego area on the law of attraction,
mhm.
don't you?
Yep, yep, it's a lot of fun.
That's good.
So, I think there's a lot of tools that are in the back of the Ask and It Is Given book, or strategies
Hmm.
or processes, whatever it's called, that are that work for, I mean, a lot of different things, but overwhelm is one of them. And I was thinking about the placemat exercise. Do you remember that one that Esther talked about?
Yeah, we haven't given that one much attention, but if I remember correctly, it's kind of like the Book of Positive Aspects, but you do it on a placemat in a restaurant.
Well, I don't know. It's similar. It's a little different than the book positive aspects. At least my interpretation of it is. Where
Okay.
with a placemat, I think the fact they calls it the placemat just because she happened to be at a restaurant and there was a
Right.
placemat in front of her. But so what Abraham instructed her to do was she had all these things she needed to do and was
Hmm.
completely overwhelmed by it. So she wrote all the things she had to do out on the placemat. Absolutely. It was like pages and pages. Like she had numerous placemats that she was just writing, all the things that she needed to do. I can totally relate to that. And then what the universe instructed her to do was take like those few things that she absolutely had to and was going to get done that day and put them on her own list.
Hmm.
And all of the rest she gave to the universe to do.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it's amazing how many of those things got done. I mean,
Mm.
it sounds like magical thinking, but it is kind of magical.
Well, it is.
It's it is. It's incredible. And I've tried that myself, and it has, I think, to do with the letting go. It's like I'm
Hmm.
not focusing and worrying and thinking negatively and doubting those things that I've got to do. And instead I'm just going, okay, I'm going to let the universe take care of that, and I'm just letting go of it. And all of a sudden, those floodgates open where all that stuff that's in that vortex is able to come in because of that
Hmm.
letting go piece.
No, I think you're right. And in fact, that kind of summarizes at least part of what I've been not doing deliberately necessarily, but kind of by accident, because there have been times where lately, with all the overwhelm, dealing with Louise's issue and so forth, um, there was just stuff I couldn't get to. I mean, it
Hmm.
wasn't a question of putting it on the back of a placemat and letting the rest of it go to the universe. I just had to let it go. I mean, there was nothing I could do. It was just beyond my ability
Which
to
is
do it.
very similar. It's
Yeah.
similar. That's
And
truly what you're doing.
some of it just kind of got prioritized away on its own because it just didn't need to be
Hmm.
done right away. Others of it, there was one where I thought for sure it was going to get in the way because it was a client of mine who I had redone the website. I've turned it into a more modern website that they could do their own changes on, and they needed me to write up a little step-by-step guide. The client is really tech challenged. I mean, really, really, really tech challenged. So
Like
he
flip
needs to have
phone.
one
We're talking flip phone still,
that or earlier, yeah.
Maybe they
Um,
still have a dial phone with a landline.
wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So anyway, he needed to have that kind of thing, and I knew he had a board meeting today or tomorrow actually. Tomorrow is when his board meeting is because this is for his organization, and the board meeting was when they were going to authorize the check to pay me for what I'm doing. And I'm thinking, well,
Oh.
I got to get this to him so I can get paid.
Hmm.
And there was no way I was going to get to it. I knew I wasn't going to get to it, and yet I need the money to come in, right? And so I just gave up. And he wrote me about it, and I really didn't know what to say. I just wrote back to him, well, he has also been dealing with a medical issue with his wife, a very, very serious one, much more serious than
Oh,
Louise's. And when I told him what was going on, his entire tone changed. He says, "Oh, don't worry about it. Get to it when you get to it. No big deal. We'll send the check
wow.
out, all this kind of thing." Like the whole thing just shifted right around simply because I let go of it. And why
Yep.
did I let go of it? Because I couldn't do anything else. There
Right.
were no other options. I just had to.
Well, you did have another option though. Your option could have been to worry and obsess about it and beat yourself up about it. And if
That's
you'd
the
done
funny thing.
that, it wouldn't have changed because
You're,
if
you're,
you
you're
when you
probably
did
right.
yeah.
But this is one good time to actually be overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed, I didn't have time to worry about it. That's how overwhelmed I
Wow. And it's funny how that's how the universe does work. It
was.
just figures it out for you.
Hmm.
It's amazing how that happens. And I have done that before, but I've put things on a list and you think, oh, I don't know how this is ever going to happen. I mean, I remember even at one point feeling like, as far as money was going, there was something about a money thing that came up that was just driving me crazy. I can't remember what it was. It had something to do with like I was late on a bill and I got a collection thing or something and I was horrified and I just felt bad about it. And I just put out there that, gosh, I really just wanted to have money flow easily to me. And I started getting like checks in the mail. And I mean, it's crazy. It's amazing how when you just let go of stuff, the universe figures it out.
It's
And I
true.
know that to someone who doesn't understand this or doesn't have this belief system, they look at you like you're crazy. Like
Hmm.
that's just magical thinking. But it is kind of magical.
Well, I'll give you another example of it. Um, with all the stuff that we were dealing with, the medical insurance, the health insurance that we've had for quite some time, was due to expire. and I had to go through the process of applying to either reinstate that one for another year or get another one, and found that the cost of that one had skyrocketed,
Oh,
and we weren't going to be able to afford it for next year. There was only one plan left that we could get, and you know what, Patty? That plan covers everything for no cost to us. I mean, just
wow.
unbelievable. I mean, it was just,
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. We went from like a plan where I was trying to figure out how we're going to pay for the bills for all this thing that Louise is going through to it's all paid for. Like, how did that
Wow.
happen?
Isn't
I
that
don't understand.
incredible?
And the timing was exquisite because all this started to happen in November at the exact point in time that we switched over to the new policy. I mean, perfect timing. The new card came the day that we went to the doctor's office.
Wow. Oh my
I
God.
mean,
Talk about perfect timing.
it was crazy.
That's so wild. That's so
Yeah.
wild. So what else has been happening in your week? I mean, overall, it sounds like things are better than they have been.
Well, we've I'm not really at a point where I want to talk in specifics about what's been going on with her because partly because it's her issue rather than mine,
Oh,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
partly because yeah, I'm just not ready to talk about it in a public forum. But when you have something that is as time consuming as this has been,
Hmm.
it knocks everything else out of the way. And
Oh, yeah.
literally, you're running from the moment you get up in the morning to when you go to bed at night. It's just you're constantly on the go, trying not even to catch up, just to like keep up with the bare minimum. You know, bare minimum of keeping the house clean, bare minimum of having the
Yeah.
food on the table, bare minimum of doing the podcast, bare minimum
Right.
of all the things that I have to do in my life, plus take care of her because she can't do a whole lot. And it's like, whoa, you're just running all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even have time to think about it being overwhelming. I was too overwhelmed to do that.
Right, right. And it worked out.
It worked
It worked
out.
out that there was probably some of those things on that list that if you'd had the time, you would have put all this time and energy and effort into
Yeah,
that didn't even need to happen.
I probably would have. Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing from my perspective, in terms of experiencing the whole thing, is that as all of as the whole thing unfolded, as the whole experience, step by step experience unfolded, it was amazing to me how often the phrase that I've been saying to myself over the last 3 to 6 months kept coming true and kept coming back to me in my mind, and that is, the universe has my back. The universe has my back. And every time I turned around and something new happened, I said, there's another example of it. The universe has my back. I had no way to fix that. It fixed it for me. Holy cow. The universe has my back.
So you're looking at those positive aspects.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is it that's happening in my life that's showing me that there are really good things happening? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that is both, it's reassuring because it reinforces for me that the stuff works, but it's also a way for me to get more and more into the zone of keep trying to put it out there, keep trying to put it out there. Just keep going with it and build the momentum because that's what's really happening here. It's the momentum is building up.
Well, that
Um,
and also the universe, you never know when something happens, why it's happening at the moment. I mean, a lot of
right.
times things seem to happen that are negative, but you
Yeah.
find out later on it was all part of the universe's amazingly smart way of helping you ultimately get what it is that you want.
Hmm.
And at the time, you're thinking, why is this happening? But then later, a lot of times, you can look back and say, gosh, that made total sense that this led to this, led to this, led to this. And I would never have been able to figure out how to do that on my own.
Exactly.
Because we got our
Yeah.
little tiny brains and the universe has that really big brain.
That's why we're so easily into overwhelm. Right there,
Yeah,
you just put your finger on it because there's only so much that we can individually handle. So when we started surpassing that, which doesn't take a whole lot,
it's
it's pretty
true.
easy to start surpassing that.
It's
Well,
true.
that just shows one more time why it's so important to put it into the hands of God slash the universe slash source energy slash inner being slash whatever you want to call it slash
Yeah.
inner Patty, higher Patty, higher Walt.
Exactly, exactly. And it's funny, I found that a lot with jobs, that it turns out that initially, um, like one time when I got laid off from a position, and I couldn't figure out where that was leading to, and I ended up getting a job. The next job that I got was combined with that previous job, the perfect experience I needed in order to get the job that I have now. And at the
Oh,
time, you're like,
nice.
why is this happening that way? But it
Yeah.
turns out, I mean, and that's why I try to remind myself whenever I'm in that bad place that there could be a reason why this is happening the way that it is, because it's ultimately going to be something that the universe has figured out how to make it all work. Are you reading some comments?
Yeah, lots of positive comments and people saying, "Oh, so true. Hello, yes, I agree. Wow, that is awesome. Oh, yes, you never know." I mean, lots of good comments like that. One person included a whole bunch of their friends' names because they wanted their friends to come hear what we're talking about.
Oh,
So people,
cool.
yeah, that's really good.
That's
Jamie posted about the method acting. She said method acting is like an embodiment of a state, and that's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Trying
that's
to,
really true.
yeah, it's a good point. She also mentioned
That's
that low vibrational thoughts equals thinking a thought not in alignment with our higher self and source, and that's exactly
mm.
where it is. Yeah, personal alignment videos is a super idea. Yeah, she said that one. Yeah, okay. Just catching up. I want to make sure I got all the comments noticed. We haven't
So
actually
once
gotten any questions today. That's the one
I
thing
know, I
I'm a little
know.
surprised. Normally we get lots of questions when we do a Q&A. We haven't gotten any
Yeah.
so far,
Well,
but
hopefully some will pop up.
oh, there's a
So
few
one
insights.
thing I did want to mention since we have a little pause here is, I'll do my little plug, my shameless plug,
Sure.
that if anybody is interested in either being part of the meetup, if they live in the San Diego area, it's called the North County Law of Attraction Meetup. That they can sign up for that, and it's once a month on Saturday mornings.
Hmm.
And if anybody's interested in contacting me personally, they can email Patty at pattyframocoaching.com, Pattyframo. And the other thing that I've got coming up is starting in January, I'm putting together a group, like a coaching class/group, if anyone is in the San Diego County area. That's going to be a 6-week program on Tuesday nights, and it's going to be for those more novice law of attraction people
Hmm.
who want to, we're going to be using asking it as given and going through the different steps and looking at actually practicing some of the processes and exercises in the back of the book on things that apply to their personal lives and coming up with challenges and issues that are causing pain or discomfort or unhappiness for them,
Mm.
and actually addressing them by using those processes and practicing them and supporting each other as a group.
Very good. Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
same kind of
So,
idea as pivot miles, but in a more live environment, which is good because when everybody's in the same
exactly.
room, it's a different kind of vibe that way.
Yeah. And people really are very supportive of each other as well, which is nice.
Yeah, that is
So, I'm hoping to have between 8 and 10 people in that group. So, right now I've got about 3 people signed up so far.
good. Good. Well,
Yeah.
you'll probably get it. I was just
Yeah.
realizing one of the reasons we probably don't have a whole lot of people come here to ask questions is I forgot to post this last week. So this only
Ah,
got posted this morning. So it's not like people had a whole lot of warning that we were going to do Q&A today.
ah.
That's probably why, but that's okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Bronwyn is
have you guys got,
things too. Bronwyn is the one who said that, wow, this is awesome. And she said, your talk is so interesting. We are just in awe. And she's got a big smiley face. And I thought that's
aw, how
really,
cool.
really sweet. Oh, Christy wants to know how long have we both been practicing law of attraction? All of our lives. But that's not really the answer you're looking for.
How long have we consciously and deliberately been practicing
Deliberately.
law?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Let's see. For me, I started in November 2007 when I first saw The Secret.
that was when it started for me.
Yeah.
I remember way back when I was in college, one of my roommates was into Wayne Dyer, and I
Mm.
thought it was the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, how airy-fairy? Like you just think something and it happens? I mean, yeah, right, that's really gonna work. I was completely not in that place yet of being able to even hear about it. But
Mm.
when The Secret came out, I mean, there was something very, there's things I liked about it and things I didn't like about it. The basic thing about it that I thought was so wonderful is that it kind of did make the message palatable for the general public.
Yes.
That, gosh, look what you can do and get out of this. What I didn't like about it is that it was it seems sort of really sort of glitzy and marketing driven and kind of money oriented. And it didn't, for me, what I do appreciate about it is that it opened me up to the whole concept.
Hmm.
And it was just at the right time. And what it did then was it helped me to have an interest in delving a little deeper
Mm-hmm.
and going in through the layers because it was kind of simplistic and
Mm-hmm.
it didn't, it was just, it had a purpose, which was to
Yeah.
make it palatable for the general public. And
Right.
that I felt was very effective. Look at how many people
Oh, hey,
became aware of the whole
absolutely.
concept just through that.
Exactly true.
So, and it's
And
funny,
Christy
I
asked,
don't rem go ahead, I'm
Christy
sorry.
asked, was it Secret the book or Secret the movie? Or Jamie said Secret the movie. And yeah, I saw the movie first. The book came out second as a sort of a mostly a transcription of the movie. But I actually did both. I don't know about you. I did the movie, then
Yeah,
I did
I
the book,
did both.
and then I said, well, what's next? Because
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
to me, The Secret is LOA light. It's good. It just
Yes,
doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it. You need,
exactly.
I think most people need to have the depth. The depth is really useful. So as much as I enjoyed The Secret and was glad that I was exposed to it, if somebody asked me to recommend a book, I won't recommend The Secret. I'll recommend the Abraham Hicks book, Law of Attraction, Basics of the Teachings of Abraham, because it's so in depth and yet it's so easy to understand. It's both.
And I often recommend asking it as given just because it doesn't, sometimes for some people, if they don't want to read so much detail,
Hmm.
they just want to kind of get the basic idea of what law of attraction is about and learn some of
Hmm.
the processes. That I felt was a good place to start. And
Hmm.
then, but although I don't know how, it's so funny. Abraham Hicks just kind of fell into my lap. And I don't know how that occurred. It was sort of, I got into Marianne Williamson and some other things. And I don't know if it maybe was from The Secret when Esther was on in that first version that they had.
Well, that's
But
what it was for me because I didn't see the first version. I saw the what they call, I think it was they call it the enhanced version or something like that. The one
mm,
that most people got when they bought it. Only I think it was the first 100,000 one was the copy that had Esther in it, and then they wrote Esther out. And I'd heard that there was an earlier version that had this person Esther Hicks in there. That's how I heard about Abraham Hicks. I had never heard of
interesting.
it before, and then I heard that there was this person who was receiving this non-physical being, and that was like the real basis for The Secret. And I said,
Yeah.
well, where's the
How do
video?
I find out about that?
How do I find? And I
Exactly.
couldn't find it. I couldn't find a copy anywhere. For years, I couldn't find a copy. I finally actually did get one. I have now a copy of both copies of the video. I have the Esther Hicks version and the non-Esther Hicks version. But yeah, I mean that actually sent me
I
off on
have
my
to look at
quest.
mine again. I have to look at mine again and see. I can't remember if it was the one. Do I know that I did see her in it at one point.
Mm,
And somehow fell into that whole law of attraction of the whole Abraham Hicks thing. And once I heard that, I was hooked. It was
mm,
like it felt right in my bones.
mm.
There was just like everything about it resonated with me. And I'd been searching for religions and spiritual beliefs my whole life. I was brought up Catholic originally and then went through all these, I was a born again Christian when I was 13 and then I fell out of that. I went through all the different, I studied it in college, Buddhism and Hinduism, all that. It was all interesting to me, but there was too many rules. There was like not
Oh,
enough that quite felt right to me. And
exactly.
Unity Church, which is part of a Church of Religious Science, is the closest to me. But
Hmm.
it's still, for me personally, a little churchy.
Hmm.
And the word God doesn't resonate as much for me.
Hmm.
But somehow, once I heard Abraham Hicks and heard how the whole concept behind it made perfect sense. It made absolutely perfect sense. And what's so amazing to me is no matter how many times, I mean, I listen to it every single day. It just totally raises, I do every morning. I'm getting ready in the morning and that's all I listen to because it
That's
just
part of your
raises my
routine.
vibration. Yeah.
That's good.
And there's something about it that just is so consistent, no matter how many you listen to, no matter how many different topics they talk about. There is no way that a human being could get everything so consistently perfect every single time.
Yeah, they're really good about that. And I think you're right. I think it's the advantage of having all those non-physical beings all contributing to it rather than just one. If you had just one, you'd probably get some, I'll call it stiffness in the answer. Like the answers would sometimes be stiff because they were trying to stick to their one little thing to do. But when you have so many beings that are all contributing to it, that's what makes Abraham work so well. Because, and we've
Hmm.
talked about this, there are times when it seems like Abraham's being really harsh, and there are other times it seems like Abraham's being really gentle. And I'm convinced it's because of whichever non-physical being has the microphone at the moment. whichever one they pick as the right one to address the needs of that particular person who's in the hot seat.
So maybe when I'm going on the Alaskan Abraham cruise coming
Oh,
up,
you are?
which next summer I'm really excited about. I've never been to Alaska. I've been on a few of their trips, but maybe I'll get in the hot seat and I'll get to ask that. You
Well,
never know.
of course, there is a connection between the Alaskan cruise and The Secret.
Oh, there is? I don't know about
There
that.
is. Yeah. The
What's that
Secret,
connection?
a lot of The Secret was filmed on the Alaskan cruise
Oh,
because they had all those famous
wow.
people all at that same event.
So it was it an Abraham Hicks Alaskan cruise or was it
Yeah.
just an Alaskan?
Oh, yeah.
So that's so interesting that she was cut out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Fascinating.
Rhonda was concerned that it was going to interfere with the marketing. So, you know.
Well, and I heard also, I actually saw an interview where Esther said that it had also something to do with the fact that there was a contract initially put out there that then ended up getting changed because after everything was all done and it was put out, Rhonda wanted to change it so that she could
Right.
get royalties from everything.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think she was getting royalties anyway, but
she wanted more.
it depends on who you listen to. That's what's so interesting. If you can find the different stories, the stories dovetail a lot, but like usually happens with stories, there are also differences in them. The one that I
Yeah.
found to be interesting was there was an article that was published in the Australian, which is kind of like Australia's
Oh, I
version of
saw that one.
News Magazine. You see that article? Yeah, and
Hmm.
that one had some really interesting takes. It was a little bit negative take in some ways.
Yeah, yeah,
But it was still it was enlightening to see what it was like from that viewpoint because you pick stuff up that you wouldn't have picked up otherwise, I found. So I thought
yeah.
that was a really good article.
It's
But
true.
yeah,
That's
I mean there's
interesting.
just so many different. I mean, I actually talked to the guy who did the social media,
Oh,
the one who
interesting.
helped make it go viral on social media. I had a conversation with him by phone one time and got his take
Wow.
on what it was like, working with
And what
Rhonda
did he
Byrne.
say?
Well, the problem is I
Uh-oh.
can't say a whole lot of it because he couldn't say a whole
Oh,
lot.
okay.
He was
Okay.
because they've been through some lawsuits, and as a result of the
Oh,
lawsuits, there were certain things he just couldn't talk about. He hinted at some things. One of the most fascinating things that he hinted at, and I still am not completely sure about this. This may have been his bias too, because he had a downer on Rhonda Byrne. Right? He felt like Rhonda treated him badly. But in his words, roughly half of the presenters of The Secret were frauds.
that's so
That
interesting.
that's what he said. Now he said half of them were legitimate, and he said he himself is not a believer in the law of attraction. So, but he
Wow.
felt that a half of them were legitimate, that they were genuine, honest, and so on and so forth. He said the other half he wouldn't trust them as far as he could throw them.
Yeah, I did sense some that didn't feel real to me in
Did you?
watching that. I remember. Yeah, I remember feeling kind of like, oh, this is just a marketing thing
Mm,
on some of them, where they just wanted to kind of get clients or something, It didn't feel really
yeah,
genuine. But
right.
there's something about when Esther channels Abraham that is just, it just feels so genuine and so real to me.
That's what was so
And every,
interesting about the Esther part of The Secret, because once you see the version that has her in it, I mean, her contribution was minimal in terms of what Rhonda edited in. That it's a wonder that she edited it out. I mean, why did she even bother? It's not like there was this major Abraham thing going on. It just seemed like Esther talking to the camera. So I
yeah,
didn't quite
interesting.
understand that. But an Esther Hicks Abraham receiving workshop is a completely different experience from The Secret. I mean,
Hmm.
completely different.
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah.
you're right. I mean, when you hear the whole thing in context, uninterrupted, unedited, the whole flow, it just makes sense in ways that nothing else makes sense.
It's
And
true.
and I've enjoyed a lot of the gurus, if you will. Lately, I've been enjoying Neville Goddard. Cindy Chavez and I have been doing the Neville Goddard books, and they're fun. They're really good. I still
Hmm.
say Abraham's at the top of the list. They're really, really good.
Yeah, totally for me.
Yeah.
Totally for me. I have to say, I'm just a one flavor person when it
You're
comes to
one
that.
flavor.
Ab Seriously, well, I know that I should be open to those other ones, but Abraham Hicks is the one that it just hits me in my heart. It totally feels right to me.
Jamie made
So
a
I,
really good comment. She says different people resonate with different ways of presenting the ideas, and that's exactly true.
yeah, I
That's
agree.
exactly true. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And it's like with a process. I mean, you have to go with whatever feels right to you. For both you and me, Abraham felt right. So that's where we put our highest votes, so to speak. For you, your exclusive votes. I actually kind of, swim out and explore the others too. But you have to go with what feels right.
Yeah.
I mean, Louis and I were chatting about um, meditation after the podcast. Well, during the podcast this morning, but afterward as well. And he was recommending to me that I should give meditation another chance. The actual sit down meditation, because I've made no bones about the fact that it just doesn't really seem to work for me.
I agree with him. I agree with him.
You think so?
I
Okay.
think you should try
Well,
it again.
well,
But
what
maybe
he's
guided meditation, or maybe something that's a little different.
possibly, possibly. There was one guided meditation I had many years before I even knew about the law of attraction that I loved. A lot of them kind of leave me flat, but
Go back to that
what I
one.
asked him was why, and he said, "Well, it's because it's for quieting the mind." And I said, "Yeah, but I've pretty much learned to quiet my mind. I mean, there are times that I still need to work on it a little bit, but I haven't found the meditation has worked." And he says, "Well, that's because you just aren't meditating enough. You need to get into the quieter, quiet mind." I said, "Well, what's quieter than silent?" And he said, "Well, it's more silent than silent." And I said, "Okay, I'll go with this." So what do you get when you go after, more silent than silent? He says, "You get what you want." I said, "Oh, all right, okay."
Well, guess what? We're out of time. I just
How
noticed
about
the
that?
time.
It's amazing, but we had a good time. We didn't. We raised all the questions ourselves and we answered them.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. We just can talk to ourselves.
we do all the time anyway. But no, well, I love talking with you anyway because I found that I mean every co-host is different and I enjoy all of them. You're the one that I feel like it's just the easiest conversation because we're so much on the same wavelength. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
when you utter the thought, it's exactly the thought I had in mind, and so it's just kind
Easy
of flows.
peasy. Yep,
Yeah,
I
really
agree.
easy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
All
well,
right, we're
this has been great.
high-fiving ourselves then.
Yep, high
Woohoo!
five, hooray! And I will be sure to put out the event announcement today instead of next Monday, so people have time to sign up for it and prepare their schedules so they can come and do the Q&A with us. But
Okay, sounds good. And I would love to welcome novices too, to really get
absolutely,
some of those basic concepts down. I love talking about that and love teaching about it.
yeah. In fact, if you're hearing this and you know it's coming up next week, share it with your friends. You know anybody who's still learning how all this kind of thing works? Put their name in when you see the announcement so that they can see it too.
Exactly.
Share the love, so to speak.
I like
And
that.
by the way, become a subscriber if you're not a subscriber. The details are in the description. Patty, it's been great. I look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, sounds good. Take care, Walt.
All right. We'll see you all next time here on Elevate Today. Goodbye, everybody.
I can't help it.